watched Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Are you going to appear at some point, someday, at some point? I hope so. In the middle of it, just like, hey, I was here all this time. 1, 2, 3, you were ready.
The World Rests in Grandmother's Hands. Podcast by Vera, 8th of March, 2026.
Hey.
Hey.
Who we are.
Wow.
We are Vera.
We're Vera.
We are Vera. I'm Vera's mama. And I am mama of a core concept, of some, I believe, core values of this platform.
Well, I happened to be introduced to Vera already after it has been established, and so I am feeling like it's like I'm the aunt of Vera.
And together we'll speak about the latest event of Vera. It was offline event dedicated to grandmothers and their unique role in shaping our identities, our personalities, and national identities in particular. And this event was also about reconnection with them, appreciation of their experience, and I call it grandmother's touch on our souls, on our identities.
We will also talk about the specific part of the event that was micro research, and it was a micro research about our own memories, ours and our participants' memories of their grandmothers and the connection that they had with them or have with them.
Yeah, so Anastasiya was the host and author of memory sharing practice, let's call it like this. And we have a beautiful and painful but really interesting at the same time insights from this interview, and we'll speak in details about each point of it. We really want to highlight and to show you and to maybe even explore some new things during this conversation today.
Perfect. Well, look, I could only speak to 7 people during the event. I thought I would do 10 interviews, but it was honestly more, it took longer than I thought, and I wanted to also dive a bit deeper with each participant. So it was 7 people in total, and it was 2 Portuguese girls, 1 French girl, 1 Ukrainian girl, and 3 Ukrainian men who were the respondents.
I remember that like my favorite insight was this unrecognized mental instabilities, right? Let's call it like this.
Yes.
Because since it was not recognized, we cannot call it issues or illnesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it had all the symptoms.
That's true. So basically, while it was unrecognized back then, it is important that we at least now recognize this, because one thing about trauma, because I studied trauma quite a bit, and then one thing about trauma is that it will never be healed unless it's recognized.
Yeah.
So these types of memory practices, they're important even after generations. It's important to understand what has been happening with to acknowledge, to give them the necessary understanding to the whole generation, to our grandmothers, in terms of what they've been going through. And they've been going through a lot of things, depending on where they come from, depending on a lot of historical circumstances. However, I guess what was very common thing everywhere we look is that women in the 50s, imagine 40s, 50s, who would be thinking about the really checking in with them about how they feel. No one would do that, unfortunately. And back then, mental issues were ignored, right?
Absolutely.
There was no such word as, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I have anxiety, I have this disorder. It was just up to women to fix themselves, to fix whatever was wrong, and then produce the result of being the proper wife, mother, also survive. And I just want to start with how there was a lot of shame and guilt involved into the culture. And in general, there's so much shame and guilt involved into being a woman, starting from our body and finishing with how we behave and how we feel. There's just one quote that I wanted to highlight. It's from our Ukrainian participant's grandmother that goes, it's a shame, because one of the questions of the interviews, I was asking people, do you remember their phrase, their favorite, your grandmother's favorite phrase, what she was saying a lot? So her grandmother's goes like this: it's a shame to not know something, but it's even more shameful not to ask. So in general, it seems like, okay, cool, that's some sort of phrase about the knowledge, you need to be curious as a person. But the way it's framed, it has a lot of shame in it, you know? So it also speaks about how we function through shame so much.
Yeah.
And I guess, I don't know, correct me, but I think the shame could have been oftentimes the reason why women could not express how they feel.
Exactly. And this, I would say, the generation of my grandmother and even my mother, like these Soviet children, it's a generations of guilt and shame, because it was also pushed by government, by state. It was pushed by, it was like, it's to be ashamed. It was a social norm, because you must even, I noticed some things from my mother, then sometimes she even acts that she's ashamed. Like asking for help is an act of weakness.
Yes, and you're not coping by yourself, so you're not enough.
Yes, and sometimes I see that when my mom, she knows that she shouldn't be ashamed of asking for help, but maybe I'm wrong, but she like pretends that she's ashamed. This shame and guilt, it made women to be silent about their pain, about their even like sadness, melancholy, they didn't even know that they feel that way. I mean, and when they felt it, like when you're just upset and you don't understand why you're upset, and I mean, not upset is a response for something, right? On something, to something.
You're sad.
You sad, yeah, and you just don't understand why you're sad, and it was considered as a tough character, or as laziness, or I really like this word neputevый. In Ukrainian, actually, I think it came from a Soviet. It's a Soviet word.
It's a Soviet
because it sounds like more like Russian. But why I remember it, because I heard it so many times in my childhood. Not about me. I'm really happy that not about me, but about like other children in the sandbox. Yeah,
and so if you were to translate neputevый.
Yes, like direct translation would be like someone who doesn't have a path away, like who doesn't see, I think, who doesn't feel a path, like someone lost, right? And all these symptoms of depression were or ignored, or try to be healed by church and rituals, and sometimes it was a combination of prayers and like some kind of magical rituals. Yes. Like I know rolling eggs, above your head.
About, where you need to go to a special woman, and the special woman will roll an egg onto your head. Then you know what's the crazy part about that? That some people say, because then you carry the egg with you, and then you do something with the egg. I don't remember. Oh, okay. In one version of it, you need to then peel it, because it's boiled egg. So you peel it, and then you give it to the pigeons or something. So that's the crazy urban one.
I don't remember details, but I remember exactly that everyone from Ukraine, from our age and our
we've been rolled.
We've been rolled. We've been rolled, and even if not rolled, you are aware about this national
but then,
meme.
You know, they break the egg, and then it's black.
Black.
Yes, because people say, there's like so many stories, and people are like, and then she breaks this egg and it's black inside. Can you imagine?
This egg was cooked by this woman.
Well, something was inside the egg. Something.
Oh, okay. That's
but people are like, so she rolled out something from it, because there was something black inside.
You know, I always leave some space in my head and perception for things which I just let them be. If it's like additional healing approach, but sometimes it was a substitution of a real needed medical treatment, and this is the worst. This is the worst.
Yeah, but the simplifying the mental health issues. I am feeling it because my mother is from the generation of the 50s. She was born in 1952, my mother. So I have been brought up by the person who we're talking about now the mother, not the grandmother, because also I haven't been affected by directly by these ways of thinking, but through my mother I have, right? So
she's a bridge.
She's the bridge.
Yes.
Exactly, yes. And my feelings were never heard in my family. If it's good feelings, of course, if it's something negative, then it's like everything was mirrored back to me as, you're a difficult person, you don't like it, you don't appreciate then the other thing, you're in a bad mood, you're sad, just wipe it off, let's go, we need to do this. And like,
don't be sad,
don't be sad. That was again through shame. So I was always ashamed of being, anger was not on the table. You cannot be angry as a woman. You absolutely aren't allowed to be angry, at least in my family. You should always smile, you should always look good, and if you try to express how you feel, you're just making people's life harder. That's basically, they were trying to fix me because they didn't know that I just needed support. And I was blaming. Actually, our conversation with you these few days about this research, it has made me realize, I need to look for the further connection. I need to understand where these things have been coming from, because they were not trying to be mean to me.
Sure.
They just absolutely were not from the time when feelings were a thing. So,
for sure.
So that's the problem, and I get it how Roman, the French responded. Romain. Yes. I was asking people, what is your special connection with your grandmother? And she said, we keep with us her depression.
Yeah, but now we have capacity to manage it, right? So now we have all the terms we can operate. At least we can name our feelings. At least we can recognize, like, almost for every state of psyche, every state of your mind and body, we know the exact term, and the term has a description which can help us recognize what's going on with us. And this one is the best part, I believe, of our living on the planet Earth today. Me and you, as women in particular, was also lack of sexual education, lack of understanding of our physicality, lack of understanding of our body, disconnection from our body. So you had, as a woman, you had just one mission, to give a birth, and it was pushed by society, by tradition, by church. It was pushed by like a lot of things, but not by yourself. It was not a choice. And baby boom generation.
Yes, that's the term for to basically describe the intention of the state to repopulate. Well, basically it's the term from the States more, but we absolutely can apply it to Europe as well, to repopulate Europe, because Europe was destroyed massively. The 15% of in the Soviet Union, 50% of the population has died because of the Second World War. So of course women did not have a choice, but also there was a clear directive from the state that you have to give birth, and then of course there was no such thing as protection, as the contraception at that time.
Having a lot of children, sometimes it was 5 plus, even 10. I know stories when it was 12 children in a family. It was not a conscious choice, and there was an idea which came from church, of course, that children were given by God, and when God wants, you have children, you do it. You have just your natural
you're just basically
positive
a transmitter of children into this life. You're just some channel, some tube that the children are from. That's your role. You do what you gotta do. That was how it is.
Yes, and
but I think many people still live by this,
Of course. I mean, it haven't disappeared anywhere. There were also a lot of myths about women's body and the function of women's body, and it was a lot of myths like based on the religion, on the church and the rules of the church. For example, when menstruation, it was a sign of impurity.
Yes.
So when you have an menstruation, you have a bunch of buns. You have restrictions. Yes. So you can't enter in temple. Yes. You cannot kiss in the cross. You cannot bake holy bread.
Actually, many religions, not only in Christianity, because now I recall certain similar things from Hinduism also.
And
cook there,
and Islam as well, and Christianity, not Orthodox only, but in Ukraine we had some beautiful things, but funny, that we had our Ukrainians actually didn't like to call these things their names, so they had shameful. They had a lot of euphemisms for some terms, and for menstruation we had a lot of things such on the shirt na soročci. 100 years ago, and back then there was no such a thing as an underwear as we have it today. So it was a short, long, specific short, and that's why I think they call it on the short, because it was a stamp on the short, right? Blossom. I don't know why blossom. Maybe because of the color. I'm not sure, but again, and guests have arrived. I think you heard, because it's more of our, I think, childhood, right?
I guess.
But from my childhood, the funniest and the most weird and was Kica noseka rozbila. It's like a kitty or a pussy. Or a pussy scratch her nose. Like a pussy scratch her nose.
You know, while you were mentioning about these things, I actually, because I was trying to recall the Portuguese one. I know Portuguese as well have euphemisms for the period. There is a few. Rule, regra. So they call it a rule. They call it the time of the month, those days. Okay, they also call it Chico, which is a nickname for Francisco. Like a short one for Francisco. Francisco arrived, Chico arrived. Okay?
Wow.
But the funniest one to me is a monstra.
You know what's funny? We had also in Ukraine, Ivan has arrived. Ivan has arrived,
Really?
and for these days, exactly.
These
We
days, yes,
also
of course.
It's I think it's.
But what do you think about the monster? Because
monster.
It's something you should be scared. You should be hiding, and it's the monstrosity of the female body that the patriarchal culture is so scared of and is trying to cover into everything. I love the monster. Yeah.
For sure, it's a monster, because when you have this monster, you are forbidden from attending holy weddings. There were a lot of fairy tales. What will happen with you if you come to the temple with menstruation or whatever? Yeah, if you break the rule.
But you know what I've read is that actually the rule is so ancient, and it came from the times when women did not have apparently they weren't really wearing underwear. They were wearing like long skirts and stuff. So the church just didn't want them to stain the floors, and that rule came from back in times when. But I really struggled to believe that there was a time when women wouldn't wear anything under their skirts. But okay, let's say they wouldn't. Maybe the church didn't know if women were wearing anything or not, so they were scared. They were scared for the floors. You know, you're gonna stain the floor. Stay home. And I remember there was a time when I actually went. I was a teenager, and I went to the church, and I was on my period, and I thought, oh my God, do they all know? They all know, right? They know.
Wow.
Oh, they know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had the same.
Yeah.
And after you given a birth, I mean you, not you, but after women gave the birth, there was also like a sign of that woman is unclean for 40 days after she gave birth. I don't know where this rule came from. I mean, like logical or historical, but it also came from the church, and
I think it came from the male fear of strange things happening to women's body.
And psyche. This baby boom generation, there were no divorce, because divorce is a sin.
I actually was just looking through, because our Portuguese grandmother, she is a matriarch, and she divorced back in her youth when it wasn't okay, it wasn't a thing, but she still divorced. She moved on her own to closer to Lisbon, and so she was actually this very good example of the exclusion from the rule, that you know there were these strong women, but that was not okay to do that in society anyways.
It was also this baby boom post-war propaganda in Soviet Union, And there was even such a contract as a gender contract of the working mother.
It was encouraged
to give birth to have more benefits.
Well, basically that's why so many of the grandmothers, they had so many siblings, like around 11, but just to map this time a little bit better, after the victory of the Soviet Union, of like the anti-Nazi forces, Soviet soldiers went into Germany and Austria. They occupied those places, kicked the Nazis out of there, and in May 1945, in Vienna alone, 87,000 women reported being raped by the Soviet soldiers. Even more is the number in Berlin. So what is going on is that these people who have been... Hi Busha, how are you? It's a disturbing topic, I'm sorry, but we have to hold on. The post-war was also very difficult, and imagine the women who have met Soviet soldiers, the liberators, and then the liberators do these horrible things. People lived in 800 calories per day, so there was actually also quite a hunger time of the post-war. And then, after the war has stopped, Europe had to re-establish its relationship to the people who have been collaborating with Nazis, and they had to kind of do the cleaning, the cleansing, and this cleansing meant that thousands and tens thousands of people were sent into prison. When it comes to women were actually also punished, of course, for collaborating with Nazis. And I don't know the definition of collaboration. If you've been raped by a Nazi, does it count like collaboration? Could be easily, but what they would do in France with these women, they would shave their heads and then they would send them off to march on the streets when people would be basically kicking them, I don't know, with their hair shaved off. So we're talking about this kind of time. And the cities are ruined, we cannot really imagine speaking about the, freedom of choice, because you live in a world where you're lucky to survive, where trauma is followed by another trauma. And of course, abortion was illegal. Of course, that was not a choice to even have that considered, because the aim of the state was to rebuild and repopulate Europe. And actually, in Eastern Europe, the thing with abortion was a little different, because the Soviet Union ideology, communist ideology, was a little different for the equality for the women as a worker. They needed women as workers. So actually, as early on as in the 1920s, abortion was actually legalized. Then in 1936, Stalin has reversed it. So Stalin is like, no. Then World War II, and in the 1955, it started to be legal again. So in the East, it was different. However, it didn't mean that the woman had a choice to have the abortion. It was more the system dictated. The system dictated in terms of the reasons why you could have it. So when we talk about the childhood of the grandmothers, that's the kind of the world that we speak about. And so of course we cannot divide them from their state-dictated mission to rebuild, to repopulate, and I believe that many of them felt like, I want to do that, I want to help, because now I can imagine
I was born for a cause.
And now we're going through our war in Ukraine, and I have similar kind of feelings sometimes that I want to help to rebuild the country potentially after the war is over. But that is not about freedom, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, for sure. most traditions around the world are built under the patriarchal system, and it means strict gender roles. So tradition is always like strict gender roles, and in Soviet Union it was always the clear line between men's work and women's work. True. Like what women are allowed to do and what men should be ashamed of doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And vice versa. And women were not valued for their minds and initiative, so they were what mattered is that how and how much they can carry in a literal way and emotionally. Pracowita. This is the next point of a similarity between our grandmothers, among our respondents, right? So
that they are all hard workers.
And in terms of Ukrainian grandmothers, they came from this Soviet ideology, and they were doing as much. I mean, they were doing too much, I believe. True. And as we already mentioned, they didn't even realize that they're doing too much, and it's too much for their health. We can observe the state of the skin, the state of the body, the physical health, the mental health of women after 50s, right? From the previous generation. They were heroes for me, but they were never recognized as heroes. They were rarely seen as heroes, because heroes were who? Those who were fighting for a state in a war. Those who building castles, building factories, building, literally, and these were things mostly associated with men. And the truth is that they were really, women were really doing too much. They were houseworkers. They were raising kids. They were caring about garden, all this stuff around their everyday life. They would carry about their men. They would feed the men. Yes. They would wash the clothes.
And they full-time work apart from that.
And can you imagine that? For example, today, to wash your clothes, you just need to grab everything and to put into a washing machine. But that day's washing everything, making all the things, was a really hard working process, because you doing it all by hand.
You need to krahmal to
shape.
Yes. I can't imagine how they could have done everything with 24 hours, because that's not enough for anything.
Yeah.
No.
Of course, during wartime, the role shift was implemented, because there were no men, and women
cover so much.
Exactly.
I think that's also where the controlling aspect of the character could have come from. I was thinking about it, because if your whole family depends on yourself, because the man is at war, and that meant often no connection, no mobile phones back then, or nothing. You really have to control every aspect of your life to just stay alive and to keep your family alive. And I could notice by the research that a lot of these women were, and not only our interviews, but maybe Ukrainian old women, they would be labeled as controlling sometimes. And now I can see where it could have come from, because they had so few control of their lives, they had to basically take care of it.
But in Soviet Union also was like a form of emancipation, which was different from the rest of the Europe, as we already mentioned some differences, because at the beginning of 20th century they gained a formal equality, and they were women were pushed into exhausting double lives, and from these double lives, what I mean here, so you are working full time, you are being perfect for your kids, and you're a young mom. Like Soviet woman, like archetype of a Soviet woman, it was a superpower. Media propaganda. It was two magazines. Kristyanka, which means a women from a village, right? And Работница.
Yes.
It's like a worker, the worker. Kristyanka, she's from village. She's a really hard worker. She wears a headscarf. She's like doesn't have any makeup, so she's super simple dress. Her hands are rough and
like she's a big woman. She's tough.
She's kind. She's smiling. She's really modest and devoted to the party. I mean partia, not the party.
Yeah, to the party.
And to her family. Работница, who is a worker, she was a factory woman, like she was about like physical work more.
Yeah.
And she's in a jumpsuit, working in a factory or mine or workshop, so doing something with her hands. And the thing is that this was a gender distorted image, because they even called such workers, women, as men in a skirt.
Men in a skirt, yes, that was a cool thing to call
a woman. And these women supposed to be strong, resilient, silent. What is important? Silent and productive, and productivity over the personality.
And I think it was demanded that women overcome their own their own fault of being a woman. I think I've sensed that as I was growing up and as I was studying to become a filmmaker in Ukraine, and the school was very old school. So our ideology in film school, and I was learning for a film director. So the moment I arrived to that school, our teacher was trying to tell us how we have to reject our femininity if we want to be successful in the profession. So essentially you have to become this kind of работница, you have to become this man in a skirt, and you have to grow the balls. That was the phrase that was like very catchy. And he would always tell us, you have to grow the balls, otherwise your film will be feminine. And it's the feminine directing which is faulty directing. So it's basically it felt like a man, his start line at this run was right here, and for us we have to first get where the man is to basically reject our all these faults and flaws is what I'm looking for, flaws that like of what makes us not enough as a human. So we first reach where the man starts, and then we go to the profession, and if you do something feminine, that would be weakness.
Ideological communist woman is a woman who was this figure was pushed in 30s when especially during the era of political repression. these tough times for Ukraine, that the toughest, I believe, time for Ukraine, where Holodomor is coming from, the man-made famine, from and also розстріляне відродження. It's a executed renaissance. It's an entire generation of cultural and academic leaders was wiped.
Yeah, the people of education and culture and art.
Let's say academical leaders, because they were like super intelligent. They were working in education, and they were all like writers and artists, and not just like artists of the underground. They were really popular, and people were like, they had influence, they had power to change, they had this urge for change. They wanted like to separate from Russian Empire, to separate from Soviet Union, to change the system. And this repression then developed into more severe like repression of thought and identity. I mean, when you speak Ukrainian, you are already the enemy. That's true. Like promoting natural culture, celebrating local traditions, it was everything forbidden and considered as dangerous, as nationalists.
In the Ukrainian context, being nationalist is very different from being a nationalist in German context or in American context. It has very different different motivations of maybe the same framework.
It was persecuted. It was gulags, and during this time of continuous repression, there were this third figure of like archetype of women pushed by a state is this communist ideological women. And imagine what was framed as right for her. So like betrayal of her husband, reporting her husband as a political enemy, like an enemy of the state. It was this kind of betrayal. It was the way of survival.
Yeah, I'm thinking that these women lived by the double layer of patriarchy when you mentioned betraying your husband for the system, because technically you're supposed to be under your husband's rule, but then unless he's against the system, then you give away your husband, so then you are submitting to the system.
I would really love to highlight the topic of Soviet propaganda around 8th of March.
Okay, look, how was your 8th of March this year? Because for me, I think the first thing I received was my mother's wishes for feminine happiness. Then we started already this whole discourse, because 8th of March is a very complex holiday also for the post-Soviet countries, because it has so much bullshit layered upon before we actually remember what it is about. How was it for you this year?
For me this year it was better than the previous year, because previous year I received a lot of kind words about my femininity. Yes, exactly.
These flowers, chocolatey
vibes from even from even my the people of my age from Ukraine. They're not my friends, they're not my close circle, but like people from Instagram, right? And like happy Women's Day, happy day of spring, like a celebration of feminine energy,
fertility,
because
what is spring? What is spring is about? It's about like, hey, you can wear less clothes and men get horny again. Whee!
Yes, exactly.
Because USSR already has somehow established that the system told women they are already equal. Here you can work in the factory, you can have children, you can be the ideological propagandists. What you might want, you're there. So this like second layer of patriarchy dictated that we don't need feminism anymore.
And what's interesting, exactly, that it was a formal. It was a formal equality, but on the deeper layers of society, it was masked in this kind of celebration of a spring. Right. So it was a system tool. We inherited a lot from Soviet Union in terms of this celebrational model, and. But at the same time, we inherited a lot, right, from the global feminist roots. But speaking about feminist roots, we have really strong feminist roots in Ukraine, and these roots were not inherited from anywhere from the globe, right? So it had unique values, unique fundament.
Maybe the system has its flaw sometimes by not recognizing the actual power of a woman, because a woman is supposed to be weak. So someone like Olesa Ukrainka, who was an incredibly strong and important figure, and she was kind of left to be, more or less, firstly because of her status, because she was not from a simple family, but then second, maybe specifically because she was a woman, and woman cannot pose such a harm as a man to ideology, perhaps. I don't know, but now I'm just suggesting. And maybe it was able to brew and develop a little bit better because the system just wasn't seeing it as a powerful threat.
Because also her mother was hiding it from the system. Her mother, Olena, she is actually one of the mothers of Ukrainian feminism movement and roots. And her mother, she raised Lesia Ukrainka. She educated herself, and it was not just learning basic of a math of whatever, but it was a complete, complex education. So she had all the influence from her strong and resilient mother, and these two ladies are the good example of mother and impact on her daughter, right? So family bound, it's a beautiful example. And also we have Olga Kobylyanska, who is a little bit younger than Olena Pchilka, but as far as I know, they were communicating, so they had they were not approach than in Western Europe. This kind of communication.
And remember Maksymchuk?
Yeah.
Who is actually a woman carrying the man's pseudonym when she was writing, so that was a bit of a separate approach. She decided to name her books, to sign her books by the man's name, so that she can be seen. So basically, again, proves that women in arts and culture, they were not. It was. You need to first become a man, then become successful. You know?
Exactly.
It was so tough.
Yeah.
But yes, it was a big 19th century / beginning of the 20th century cultural frontline in Ukrainian feminism that we have and that we're immensely proud of, right?
They gave the new way of thinking for women, because they from early 20s, as you mentioned, there were a legal right to terminate pregnancy, right? So, and the most important thing that earlier then in the rest of Europe, women started to gain such benefits as education.
Yes, that's true. I was mentioning about my grandmother, a child of the Second World War, and she was in her 4th year of basic school when she was fleeing the war with her mother. And the story is that she always loved to tell me that story when she was alive. Specifically, it was this one from all the war, all the that she had to stop her school when it was the 4th year of the basic school and take a train that would take them to Ural, which is like very up north in Russia and very east in Russia. And that train, they lived there for 2 or 3 months because it was like a slow drive away evacuation from the Nazism that was coming. And so she lost a few months on the road and at war and everything. And then when she arrived and started the new school in Ural, in her evacuation place, she was not a perfect grader anymore. She didn't have perfect grades like she used to have. And this kid who was 4th grade, so it was, let's say, 12? No, it's 10 years old. Yes, it's 10 years old. She had so much shame around not being as good at school due to losing these 2 months of evacuation from the Nazism that the whole story was about how she's ashamed she wasn't that good. And I think there's just so much about the generation of our grandmothers in this story, because you have to be everything. It doesn't matter what life does to you. You still have to be a hero, but it's not heroism because it's the bare minimum. And your bare minimum is to be the best at everything. And that's how our grandmothers were raised.
And you cannot be weak, and you cannot recognize any symptoms of, as we call it now, depression.
No.
And you are not allowed to speak out loud about your inside feelings, and you cannot speak you don't know even such a approach as a psychological approach. So yeah, I mean, therapy and everything, as we already spoke about. Yeah, it's a tough times for building up the mental health and balance, and
I just think it's very important to sometimes remap everything, get back to where you came from, in terms of space, in terms of time, to understand the whole map of what has been leading you to be alive in this moment and do whatever you do today. And for that, memory sharing is so important. That's what I'm going to. So I just I'm super thankful to this initiative that you created, and to this idea that let me interview these beautiful grandkids of these beautiful women. I actually thought maybe we could finish with a few of their quotes.
Let's go for it. Sure.
Because we asked them to remember favorite quote of their grandmothers, and we've got very different ones. So first one is the Portuguese grandmother who would say, "Get out of the house and do things." So I can just see how she would be like, "Yes, live your life." The second Portuguese grandmother, and I think this one is so related today, it's like, "É melhor que ir ao cinema." It's better than going to cinema. So that's about what is happening around you. It's better than cinema. And I think nowadays it's like that. Then I was already mentioning this Ukrainian grandma who said that it's a shame not to know something, but even more shame not to ask. Of course, there's the Soviet Russian grandmother who was saying Russians will do something in Donbass. That was her quote. And the other grandmother from Ukraine, and that was actually also my grandmother's favorite phrase. Main thing is that there's no war. Main thing, there's no war.
Oh yeah. Same for me. Same for me.
Your
Same for me.
grandmother.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
Аби не
there's
війна.
some- Аби не війна.
Oh, yeah.
And the last one is just for a little, pepper on top, cherry on top. Не би тебе шлях потрафив. That's a curse.
That's a curse.
That's a curse. So incredible women, and I don't know. God bless them. Which ones are still alive? Let them live longer, and who are not with us, hope the memory is alive. Yeah, as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Anastasiya.
Thank you so much for this practice. It's been incredible, honestly. Thank you. And we'll do things more. We'll do things again, right?
Yeah.
Cool.